Evolution in Humans by Jason Wodley.
Jeffrey Aglugub.
And Stefany Castro.
Today we will be talking about ape man, molecular and DNA similarities, the debate, genus Homo, genetic heritage, race, black holes and evolution, the question of morality and purpose. Is morality constrained by genetics, spirituality and science, and our final thoughts. Findings of A. africanus, ape-like man. This finding by Raymond Dart was the first missing link between human and ape. It was a southern ape man. Later unearthing, he revealed a full face of an infant, complete with teeth and molars. It had a mixture of human traits and ape-like traits, which supported Darwin's theory of descent of man, which Darwin explained that our descent was from our closest relatives, the gorillas and chimpanzees. Led to undisputed facts. Later after this discovery, genetics and molecular biologists used fossils and DNA sequences to place us humans in the tree of evolution. This also helped us find that our cousin is the chimpanzee. Coyne feels this should produce satisfaction and wonder, since it connects us to all organisms. This later led to a debate, the Tennessee Voltaire Act. With all these findings brought out large debate between the religious creationists and evolutionary biologists, also who support evolution. Humans don't find it hard to accept that mammals evolved from reptiles or land animals from fish, but they have a hard time believing we came from apes. This caused Tennessee to create a Butler Act, which says that it shall be unlawful for any teacher, all schools of the state which are supported in whole or in part by the public school funds of the state, to teach any theory that denies the story of divine creation of man as taught in the Bible. Coyne explains that most creationists draw the line at humans, but will agree or accept other species origin from descent with modification. Similarities other than the fossil record. Taking a step back from ape fossil record and toward Linnaeus's proposition, Linnaeus proposed that anatomy resembles us closely with primates, monkeys, and apes. He felt that even without fossil documentation of the missing link between human and ape, we can still see correlation between humans and other organisms. We all share traits such as forward-facing eyes, fingernails, color vision, and opposable thumbs. We are then placed in a smaller superfamily, H, along with gibbons, which are lesser apes, and greater apes, like the chimpanzees and gorillas. Molecular DNA similarities. There is also DNA and protein sequences which show relationship about our derivation from relatives. We are very closely related to chimpanzees in this way, and we diverged from our common ancestors 7 million years ago. The gorilla is slightly more distant, and the orangutans are even more distant from us. We share around 98.5% of our DNA sequences with chimps, which support our descent. So is there more? Well, given all this, Coyne explains that there still is no expectation of finding a better missing link between humans and other apes. He feels that we can only hope to find evolutionary cousins to help better support the theory. The diagram to the right shows the molecular DNA of a human, chimp, cat, and rat next to each other. As you can see, the human DNA sequence looks very closely related to the chimps, with a little bit close relation to the cat and very different to the rat.
Genus Homo. Tools are a huge part of human evolution. Making and using the tool required flexible and opposable thumb for grasping. The first species of the genus Homo to take advantage of making and using tools is the Homo habilis. The tools found with their fossils were used for chopping, scraping, and butchering. It was also assumed that the habilis were the first species of the genus Homo to have spoken a language. It is also likely that the Homo habilis coexisted with other hominins such as the Homo rudolfensis and the Homo erectus. The Homo erectus, also known as the upright man, is assumed to be the first hominin to migrate out of Africa. Many of the remains were found elsewhere, especially the Peking man in China. The erectus were nearly identical to the modern humans with brain size, but they differ with the development of a chin, where you would see with the modern humans but not the erectus. The erectus were also using tools and were also documented to utilize and control fire. They were also successful with their fitness, but their population size is smaller. The Erectus gave rise to descendants such as Homo heidelbergensis, also known as the archaic Homo sapien, and more importantly, the Homo neanderthal. Homo heidelbergensis fossils were found in what is now Germany, Greece, France, and Africa. Neanderthals showed up in 230,000 years ago, and they were found all over Europe and Middle East. Neanderthals had large brain that is bigger than those of modern humans. They are great at making tools, and they're also an adept hunters. They're also proven to be ceremonial. The Neanderthal fossil vanished around 20,000 years ago. Their disappearance may have associated with the spread of new form of species, the Homo sapiens. The Homo sapien skeleton are nearly identical with the modern humans living today. The question arises of the Homo sapien, how they came about. Two theories were proposed. First one suggests that the Homo erectus simply evolved into Homo sapiens independently in several areas. The second theory proposes the idea of Homo sapiens migrating out of Africa and spreading simultaneously, replacing Homo erectus and Homo neanderthals by outcompeting them for food and or killing them. Genetics and fossil evidence supports the second theory, but it's debatable. Another species is the Homo floresiensis, also known as the hobbit due to their dwarf stature of 1 meter and weight about 50 pounds. They, like other hominins, utilized and made tools. The factors of human evolution. 10 to 15 million years ago, Africa suffered an environmental change. The climate became drier and it resulted into a drought, but soon it was learned that the climate was alternating from drought to rainfall. This alternating climate change brought about bipedality among hominins. This enabled hominins to travel efficiently from one habitat to another. It also enabled hominins to have their hands free, allowing them to carry. Walking erect also helped regulate temperature. This would also give rise to sweat glands. The freed hands of the hominins allowed them to fashion tools, and it would increase brain size that would result to making more complex tools. Genetic heritage. In 1975, Wilson and King at the University of California came to a conclusion that there was a striking similarity between human genes and the closest to its relative. They theorized that perhaps a slight difference between the genes of human and chimps produced evolutionary differences between the two. Though the similarities are close, it's far enough to distinguish the two. For example, the hemoglobin of both, when compared together, we would see a 1.5% difference in a protein 300 amino acid that translate into 4 differences in the total protein sequences. We can conclude that 80% of proteins shared by humans and chimps differ in at least 1 amino acid, though not only they differ in genes, but also the presence of genes. For example, more than 6% of genes found in the humans are not found in the chimps. Race. Human races are merely a socio-political construct that don't merit scientific study. Race, in neutral terms, are populations of species that are both geographically separated and differ genetically in one or more trait. Under this definition, it's clear that the Homo sapiens have races. We can say that the Homo sapiens were geographically separated long enough to allow some genetic divergence, but not enough to have new species. 10 to 15% of genetic variation in humans is represented by differences between races, are attributed to the differences in physical appearance that the rest of genes occur in individuals within the races. It means that the race don't show all or none differences in the forms of genes that they carry, but instead they usually have the same alleles but in different frequency. For example, the ABO blood group. Everyone has these alleles, but they are present in different allele frequency in different groups. Some differences between races is understandable because since there is geographical separation, we can say that one particular race is adapted to that specific environment.
Black holes and evolution. Why is it that evidence for evolution is convincing, but people are not yet convinced? We rarely question the existence of black holes, electrons, and molecules, even when these are far more removed. Evolution happens here in front of our very own eyes. Yes, it does happen at a remarkably low pace, but it does not mean it isn't there. Then what is the problem? We have a plethora of evidence ranging from the microevolution side of things to the macroevolution side of things. But is the macroevolution side that have a hard time understanding. People have less of a hard time understanding that we evolve at a molecular level. They do, however, have a hard time believing those molecular changes can lead to such divergence among species, so much so that we have an ancestor that relates us to chimpanzees. All these things support the idea that species evolved from common ancestors. How then, knowing this, could we deny evolution? It's not like we have found evidence contradicting it, like finding human fossils in the same layers as dinosaurs. This doesn't mean that we know everything about evolution and how it works. It simply means that there is so much more that we have yet to discover and reveal about evolution and how the mechanism that helped it actually happen. Science wouldn't progress if we had all the answers, so we are still looking, still observing, but these are things that critics of evolution pick at to disprove it. Though it doesn't, people still need more than just evidence before they'll accept evolution completely. The question of morality and purpose. Evolution to non-believers raises questions of morality and purpose that they do not seem to find the answers to by accepting evolution. Maybe it is not the fact that we evolved from apes that messes with their heads so much, but the emotional and moral consequences of facing this truth. Unless we find them an answer to this, they won't be ready to accept it fully. Many American creationists think the perceived evils of evolution are governed by two principles of science, naturalism and materialism. It does not sit well with them to think that these are the principles and morals that would govern a person's mindset. Why? Because they think this way of thinking leads to acting without consequences like beasts and think it's okay. This, however, is a very far stretched out way of thinking about evolution. Evolution is a theory that serves to explain the process and patterns of life's diversification, not to explain purpose on earth or some grand philosophical answer to the meaning of life. It does not have the power to tell us what to do. They think evolution is trying to tell them how they should behave when it doesn't. Is morality constrained by genetics? Is our morality then constrained by our genetics? Is our behavior a product of evolution as well? If so, can we control some of it? Because a common belief is that if we are a product of evolution, then there is nothing from stopping us from behaving like beasts. Some even go as far as saying that by believing in evolution, we can behave this way and justify any behavior that goes against the norm. That is, do whatever we feel like doing and feel no remorse. This way of thinking probably came from the emergence of the selfish gene by evolutionist Richard Dawkins. People got the idea that he was trying to say that evolution makes us behave selfishly and care only for ourselves, when in reality, he wasn't trying to say anything like that. Even if we wanted to think this was true, just a look at the many behaviors of animals disproves this is the only way in which animals behave, since we also see altruistic behavior and cooperation. So what about us humans? Are we hardwired to be selfish, cooperative, or both? There is a new discipline called evolutionary psychology that attempts to answer this question. They refer to the physical and social environment to which we adapted during our start of civilization period as the environment of evolutionary adaptiveness. They say that many of our behaviors developed during this time must have stuck even if they are no longer adaptive or maladaptive today. Many of these behaviors are very distinct of humans and therefore are seen as part of human nature. However, we shouldn't always think that every part of our behavior is governed by genetics, because that isn't true. It is all too easy to make up an evolutionary explanation to many human behaviors and why they would have been adaptive in the environment of evolutionary adaptiveness. It is dangerous to fall in the tendency to Darwinize every aspect of human behavior, though, because speculating how things might have evolved are not science. There are a lot of human behaviors that could be explained by evolution, but there are also many other ones that cannot, and we have yet to find a way to test if they did or did not arise from evolving. We do not know if moral codes, religion, and music are evolutionary adaptations or not, and there is no way to find out if our genes even influence them at all. This means that genes are not destiny. The word genetic does not imply that something is unchangeable, because all sorts of environments that are applied to those genes affect them in many unpredictable ways. The world is full of both selfishness and injustice, and it is as well of altruism and selfless act of kindness. There may be elements of our evolutionary history that play into that, but these are mostly matters of choice, not written in stone, or in this case, our genes. Or as Coyne puts it, evolution tells us where we came from, not where we can go. Spirituality and science. We can find spirituality in science, as bizarre as that sounds. Many scientists find profound spiritual satisfaction in contemplating the wonders of the universe and how we make sense of things. Doing this can be extremely humbling to some. Accepting evolution will not divide our society or wreck our morals and make us feel okay about acting like beasts. Just look at the many societies around the world that do accept evolution. They have, after all, remained civil. Evolution is not about being moral or immoral. Even more full of marvel is the fact that we appear to be the only creature to whom natural selection gave a brain complex enough to understand the universe. Thanks to that, we know how we came to be. Thanks to evolution, we know who we are and where we came from, and it is humbling and at the same time liberating.